Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men. Power Black men. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models in mainstream media. So my intention is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing remarkable things in the world. My guest today is someone who is doing just that. His name is Kenneth Johnson, and he is the founder of East Coast Executives. And we're going to be talking about his company during this conversation. So without further ado, let's welcome Kenneth to the show. Hello, Kenneth. How you doing today, man?
I'm exceptional. Thank you so very much for having me, man. Shattering Black male stereotypes. I'm all for it.
There you go. So before we jump into your work, let's just start off with a few icebreakers. So first of all, tell us where you're from.
Yeah, originally I'm from a town outside of Pittsburgh called Uniontown, Pennsylvania. Made my way through South Philadelphia and then landed in Harlem, New York.
Okay. Now, tell us a little bit about your family, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I got a great family, man, a really, really big family. But let me just go nuclear. Have a daughter, a son, a grandson, and that's kind of the motivation behind a lot of the work, man. I got two young men and a young woman that I need to make sure are all right out here in this world.
There you go. There you go. So name a woman who's inspired you to be who you are.
It's my mother, Carla Johnson, Carla Ford Johnson, amazing person. She comes from good stock, man. Her mother, my grandmother Alberta, was amazing as well. So both of them, I'm going to give them both the nod and say, man, they really actually, you know what? My mom is one of six, and they're all girls. So I'll give it up for all my aunts. I'll give Rhonda, Dana, Patricia, Donna, Carol, Carla. I give it up for all of them, man. They raised me and taught me kind of how to maneuver out here.
There you go. With that being said, now name a man that you look up to and admire.
Yeah, of course, it has to be my father. My father passed away 2 years ago, August, but he was a great guy, very principled, very strong working guy. He worked for years for a candy company, M&M Mars, and he sold to like key accounts. So we always had a bunch of candy in the house, but he was that guy in the neighborhood that was like going around with a suit, like popping the trunk, giving all the kids candy and everything. So I never had any problems. I had a big family, but more importantly, I was the candy man's son. So I never had any problems in the neighborhood.
There you go. There you go. Now, if you would be trapped on an island for 30 days and you can only take one book with you, what book would you take?
The Bible.
Okay, there you go. Plain and simple. Stay in the Word, huh?
Yeah, that would be my selection. Okay. But if I had another one off of that, it would probably be, I'm a big fan of Think and Grow Rich.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that book, and it's something that I find myself kind of revisiting from time to time. So that's definitely something it would be hard for me not to bring that along. But it would be the audio book, though. It would be the audio book. So just
Now, interesting story. I actually read Think and Grow Rich when I was 13.
really,
Mhm.
man, you should have shared it. So I didn't even know about Think and Grow Rich, the original. The first one I found out about was Dr. Kimbrough's Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice.
A Black Choice, yeah.
I found out that was kind of a play off of the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich. And I was like, oh, but I didn't catch that it might have been a decade later before I even caught that. So yeah.
Yeah, because that was 1973 when I read it. That was the book that literally changed my thinking. It shifted everything for me.
So how'd you come across that at 13?
Well, my grandfather was an amazing guy. I think he had an 8th grade education. But I remember sitting down talking to my grandfather, and I'll never forget this conversation. I walked up to my grandfather and I said, Grandpa, when I grow up, I'm going to be rich. And he asked me how I was going to do that. And I told him at 13, I was going to own my own company. Okay. He said, man, that's a great goal to have. And he said, now, if you're going to be rich, he said, I'm going to give you 2 things you have to do. First and foremost, he said, you got to learn to think like the white man. Now, remember, this is back in the 70s. He said, you got to learn to think like the white man. He says, now, I'm not telling you to be something that you're not. He said, but think about it. Who has all the money? The white man. He said, so if you want to be rich, you got to think like them. He said, because the only difference between rich people and poor people is how they think.
Wow.
He said, the second thing you have to do is you have to learn how to listen. He said, rich people will tell you how they got rich. You just have to listen and learn from them so that you can become rich also. And one way to do that is for you to read books. And He told me that, and I was, like I said, I was in middle school. And my teacher, Miss Busby, wonderful lady, never forget Miss Busby, favorite teacher of all time. I asked her about books about business, and she actually recommended that book to me at 13.
Wow.
She said, Michael, I want you to read this book. And apparently it had an impact on her life.
Yeah,
but she said, I want you to read this book. And I read that book at 13.
Man, well, kudos to Miss Busby, your grandfather, everybody, and kudos to you for listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, you like movies?
I do not.
Do not like movies. So let's skip that question.
What is it about my favorite movie?
Absolutely.
My favorite movie is Juice.
Oh,
now,
okay.
Yeah, that's my favorite movie. I like Juice. So I used to tell people, you know what? I don't want to admit that my favorite movie is Juice. I need something a little more cerebral. I need something else, right? And I would ask people like, I don't watch movies. Give me something. Tell me what to say. And they would give me like, all right, well, tell them this movie. And then I'm like, well, if they ask me about the movie, I won't know anything about it. I know about Juice.
Juice. Yeah, that's a classic.
Well, I'm glad you believe so.
Yeah,
but that's my favorite movie.
There you go. Now, if I gave you a magic wand and you could create anything your heart desired, what would your life look like 10 years from now?
And this is going to sound really crazy. Outside of the fact that, of course you want, financially, you want to be sitting on $1 billion, right?
Right.
But I do think just if you just look at what it would look like from an everyday thing, I'm a big fan of the shore. And it doesn't have to be like the Caribbean shore or the Florida coast. Listen, I just like water and the ocean and looking at it and listening to it. So it could be, look, I'm here in New York, I'm from Philly. It could be the Jersey Shore, right? I could live somewhere on the Jersey Shore, but a house that looks into the ocean, right? And then I would be doing the same thing I'm doing now, but I would probably be more, 10 years from now, we'd hope to be more further along with Black Box. We just launched that. But the work I do is my assignment out here. Like I was put here to do this work. I'm a diversity recruiter. We have a diversity recruitment firm. It sits here in Harlem, New York. I'm excited about that. Like, that's the dream for me. I'm living it already. So I just need to be looking at an ocean and doing it.
There you go.
I'm in Manhattan, so I'm looking at buildings and doing it, but I'd rather be looking at an ocean.
You know, interestingly enough, I was born in Corpus Christi, right, on the coast. And like yourself, I love the coast. Absolutely. There's something about being on the water, something about being on the coast that just really nurtures my soul, man. I just love it. Just absolutely love it. Now, as a man who happens to be Black, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future in general? Where do you fall on the spectrum between optimism and pessimism for the future?
Always optimistic. Always optimistic. You know, man, listen, historically, we've been survivors, you know, and you know, come from kings, right? So I already know we're going to win. You know, I already know we're going to win. So I'm extremely optimistic about, you know, the prospects for Black men. Do I get concerned at times? Of course, man. I got a 17-year-old son. I'm very concerned about what's happening out here in some of the communities that I've chosen to live in. It gets kind of rough, and especially for Black men. But if I'm looking at it holistically and overall, I'm so optimistic, man. There's some great brothers like you doing some amazing things, allowing us to share our stories. I just had, like you had mentioned, I was on the podcast with Alfred Edmonds from Black Enterprise, sharing my story on a platform that's a Black platform. That didn't exist when I was a kid. So these are the golden, well, these are promising times in my opinion. You know, we just got to stay the course and continue to band together and do some things together to strengthen numbers. And I just think if we unify and have a strategy to the way we want to move forward, we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. Well, I like to think of myself as an irrepressible optimist with a passion for the impossible. And my friends gave me a nickname, and they call me Michael Happy Ass Taylor.
Okay.
Because of my optimism and my positivity. Now, sometimes that kind of works against me, but that's just the lens through which I see the world. I'm just optimistic by nature. And like I said, I have lots of evidence to support why I believe what I believe. But like you said, what I think about, I'm 61 years old. I remember the 60s, right? I remember the struggle, if you will. And when I look at today and I see people like yourself and the people that I've had on my podcast, how can I not be optimistic? Because brothers are doing some amazing things. Unfortunately, we just don't see it in mainstream media. And so that's why it's important to create platforms where we can showcase brothers like yourself who are doing amazing things. So that's another reason I'm extremely optimistic about the future. So
I agree 100%. And that's why I thank you for having me on your platform. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. So next question. I wrote a book titled The Cure for Onlyness, a Black Man's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Purpose. And the book addresses the feeling of onlyness that we as Black men sometimes experience when we're the only person of color in an environment. So I know you've been in that situation. So how do you navigate that?
You know, so it's really interesting. I grew up, as I mentioned, outside of Pittsburgh, right? And we lived there through my youth. Great neighborhood. I'm from the East End section of Uniontown, Pennsylvania. It's a Black neighborhood, right? But the minute you step outside of that neighborhood, it's very, very, very white. So all my life I've been in rooms, maybe not where I was the only person, but rooms where we were outnumbered substantially. And sometimes I believed I was the person with the voice for some obvious reasons, right? But I believed I was the person with the voice speaking on behalf of the group of Black people I was with, right? And so then you go to Philadelphia, which Black people have a pretty strong voice in that city. It's a numbers game, right? And that was a totally different environment. And a lot of times, business or social, I went into rooms and there were other Black people there. But as you elevate in your career space, you find that you start to revisit rooms again where there aren't a lot of Black people. But through a lot of the people I had worked with and who had mentored me in Philadelphia, I didn't feel ostracized in those rooms. I was confident enough to know that I belonged there, and I was put there to bring some other people in by maybe leaving the door open a little longer than it's been open in the past.
Yeah. It's what they say,
work.
reach one and teach one, reach back and grab
Sure.
one. Is that how
Sure.
how it goes? So now I want to give you an opportunity again to introduce East Coast Executives. Tell us, obviously, the company and what it is you do.
Yeah, listen, so I started East Coast Executives in 2001. We just celebrated our 20-year anniversary in September. My company, we're a diversity recruitment firm. We're a retained diversity recruitment firm. And basically what that means is companies come to us when they're looking to add diverse talent to their recruitment pipelines. I honestly believe I'm the world's #1 diversity recruiter. I think I got the receipts for that too. Like, I'm out here doing the work. We've been successful, and I'm not saying it's been an easy run for us because we've taken hits on the chin. 8 days after I started my business, the attacks of 9/11 happened. Most of my companies were financial service companies, so I lost everything. But I leaned on some people that I had met throughout life, and one of them being a great friend, actually a white man he was a friend. We graduated high school together, but he's from the Pittsburgh area. He's from Uniontown, PA. And he was a director at the Pepsi bottling group in Philly. And I was telling him, we were at a football game, and I was telling him, his name's Roger Maher. I don't want to slight him by not sharing his name. But I was telling him, hey, listen, man, things are crazy right now. And I just had started my business. Most of my clients were financial service companies. Lower Manhattan is in shambles. I don't have any business right now. I'm thinking about going back to the company I just left. And he said, listen, I love the idea on what you're trying to do with the diversity recruitment piece. I need more diversity on my team. I'd be interested in having a conversation about how you can support us. Boom, that happened. We got the Pepsi contract. We were working Philadelphia, and then our work there allowed us to receive an introduction to the Mid-Atlantic bottling group for Pepsi. So we had from West Virginia up to Northern New Jersey. Our work there allowed us to get an introduction to Pepsi corporate. And once all of that started happening, some of the other financial service companies that were down start coming back because now they started understanding how their staffing and recruitment needs have changed. And then they called us back into the room, and we started having conversations. But we were conversing from a stronger position, strangely enough, because we had had success with a big company. And so now we were like, we were contingency search, which for all the people out here that don't know what that means, contingency basically is they give you a job order. They say, hey, we're looking for an accountant. Let us know when you find one, and if we like them, we'll pay you. But being retained search, they say, hey, we're looking for an accountant. We're going to pay you to start the search. And then, so you're getting paid up front. Not all your money, but you're getting a piece of your money up front. So what that does is it helps you and your team out because you have money coming in, but also you have a commitment from the organization that you're supporting because now they have skin in the game as well. So it allowed us to position ourselves a little differently in our conversations. And in turn, we had much more success because the companies were as committed, or maybe they were committed. They were as committed as we were to having that search be successful. And, when I say search for us, when companies come to us and they're looking to add diverse talent to their recruitment pipelines, that means Black and brown talent to us. I know there's a lot of segments in the diversity silo, but for us, we're recruiting Black people.
Nice. Now, you shared a story about being 14 years old and someone asked you what you wanted to do once you got out of school. Can you share that story real quick?
Yeah, so I was at the East End United Community Center. Shout out to everybody in East End. That's where I told you I'm from, in Uniontown, PA. I was at the community center there, and we used to, every Friday, we would have parties. So when we would come out at a party, all the cool kids, we would sit on this wall and just, hang out, of course, introduce ourselves to the young ladies that were at the party. and also have conversations. So we were talking one day, and the conversation came up like, what do you want to do when you get out of school? And I had mentioned that it was a group of my friends there. My best friend, his name is Tori Epps, and he wanted to be a professional football player. Always has. Me and him have been best friends since second grade. So he always wanted to play professional football. And he said it with such conviction that it caught my attention. And it really made me think for the first time in my life, man, he's actually going to get that done. Like this guy is serious about this. So, and as my other friends jumped off the wall and said what they wanted to do, when it was my turn, I just said I wanted to be a businessman. As I mentioned, my father was a guy that wore a suit to work. So although I knew the industry he worked in, I didn't know kind of what he did day to day. So in my opinion, he was just a businessman. And in turn, that's the thing that drove me. But as I started to kind of think that through, not only a businessman, but I wanted to own my own business, and later found out that would be an entrepreneur. And, you just start moving in that direction, and was fortunate enough to go to the University of Maryland at College Park. Shout out to my Terrapins. And then made my way to the University of Pittsburgh, H2P, to all the Pitt Panthers out there. But those experiences led me down the road of entrepreneurship. And when I got back to Philadelphia and was able to work for people in the staffing industry, because I knew that's what I wanted to do. After I figured it out, I said, I want to own a temporary staffing firm. So two sisters out in Philly, Joyce Holly, Patricia Troy, allowed me to work with them at their staffing firm. It was called Advanced Staffing. And man, Mike, I'm gonna tell you now, I got into that and realized that wasn't it for me. That's the beauty of it. I had an opportunity and realized that wasn't the thing for me. So it just so happened I was introduced to a gentleman named Kenneth Johnson. He had a firm in Philly called Urban Recruiters. And Bernard was doing executive search, direct hire search, which is the business that East Coast Executives is in. And that was a much better window and avenue for me. That was the sweet spot for me. And I thought in those roles, in that business, I could have much more impact on getting Black people placed in decision-making roles. There was a hidden job market out here. And I just thought that, man, if we can just get in the door and start speaking to people about getting some of our candidates seen, we can have a huge impact, not only on the workplace in Philadelphia, but there were some national companies there like Comcast and people like that. And I thought that if we can work and be successful there, then we can change the global workplace in the world, because we'll be placing Black talent that can hopefully support other Black talent and getting in the door.
Now, was East Coast Executive your first company? I mean, your very first company?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I was with Urban Recruiters, and then I decided to break out and do my own thing. And like I said, that was 20 years ago in September. But yeah, it was, I kind of stepped through the door and said, this is it. And there's no looking back from there. And one of those, I talked so much that I told people I was going to do it, so I couldn't turn back on it now. They had me.
There you go. Now, I love the quote by Tyler Perry when he said, "Stop fighting for room at the table. Build your own table." I love, love, love that quote. Now, you definitely followed his advice, because you built your own table called East Coast Executives. So I'm curious though, in starting a company, I mean, did you already have experience in starting a business, or how did you launch?
Now, and it's one of those things that I tell companies when I'm trying to get African-American or Black and brown people placed in jobs. There's a certain time when experience is a little overrated and desire has to kick in, and the need to be successful in whatever it is that you do has to show up. And that's what it was for me. I didn't have, I had experience working in recruitment, but this was another level, right? Now, I always tell people that want to get into this business, you can be the best recruiter in the world, but if you're not a salesperson or if you don't do business development, you're not going to survive, because that's what's important. They got software systems, man, that'll allow you to turn 20 candidates like immediately. You don't even have to recruit anymore. You just need to know some algorithms and do some search strings and things of that nature, a Boolean search. I'm talking recruiter talk right now, so just excuse me for a second. But you can do some of that stuff and turn candidates and make calls, but you're still gonna have to sell the candidates on it. But even way before that, you're gonna have to sell a company on wanting to use you, wanting to use your firm. We don't operate out here independently. There are a lot of other companies that claim to do what we do. Do I believe we're the best in the world at it? 100%. But that doesn't mean there aren't other companies out here doing it as well.
Now, from an entrepreneur perspective, so those who are watching, maybe thinking about starting a company, maybe it has nothing to do with, recruitment and everything. So when you decided that you wanted to start this company, did you like write a business plan, come up with a market? How did you go about forming your company from the beginning?
Yeah, I had a business plan. I wrote a business. That's what they told me I needed to do, right? So I had a business plan, and 9/11 threw that business plan right out the window, right?
Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha.
So then it was survival mode. And I do think there's some value in business plans. I think there's value in planning, period. So I encourage everyone, I implore everyone that's looking to start a business, even if it's not a formal business plan, at least plan out how you want your business to operate, and who your target audience is and who your target customers are and things of that nature. That stuff's important. And there are people out here that are great at doing that. There's a young lady here in Harlem. Her name is Gina Ramcharan, and she has a company called Idea Manufacture. She's amazing at helping people take their business vision and put it on paper, but then in turn put it into action, right? So I'm good with staying close to people like that. They kind of, right. So a bit, for me, it really was just, I think I was really good at the business development piece, and I was connected enough that it made the recruiting maybe a little easier than it is for most people. Like, I'm the guy, man, I was out there. If there's a National Association of Black Accountants meeting, I'm there. If there's a National Association of African Americans in Human Resources, I was there. I partnered with the Philadelphia Urban League. I partnered with the New York Urban League. I host a show now for the National Urban League. So a big part of recruiting is networking, and a big part of networking is staying connected. And I think I'm really good at some of those things, and that's allowed us to maybe streamline our recruitment process and get in touch with subject matter experts immediately.
Yeah, and that, again, that crosses the board for any type of entrepreneur. You got to network, you got to market, you got to sell yourself, you got to have confidence in yourself, you got to get out there and get seen. That's critical. Now, you mentioned that I think Kenneth Johnson was one of your role models in terms of no Black CEOs of Fortune, well, just 2 Black CEOs, I believe, of Fortune 500 companies. So I'm curious now, as an entrepreneur yourself, you think about the lack of Black men in those roles. Do you see Kenneth Johnson building his company so that his company actually becomes part of that Fortune 500 club?
Wow. So there's a couple points here that I want to get across. I've never met Mr. Chenault. I think he's amazing. He definitely is a role model, but that's the beauty of the world that we live in today. You don't have to meet people for them to have an impact on you and the work you do. At the time when I started my business, he was the 3rd Black man that had been a Fortune 500 CEO. And if you look at our app, Black Box, like, we have the Black CEOs on the homepage of that box. But another thing. But anyway, I don't know if that's the path or the journey of my business.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. I really think that, I'm just not sure that's the journey that I've ever wanted to take. And it's funny that you asked me that, Michael, because God bless the dead, but my father had asked me that maybe 10 years ago. He didn't ask me. We were watching something, on TV, and it was featured, it was a white firm feature. And my father said, yeah, one day maybe your firm will be like that one, right? And I said, I'm not sure I want it to be. Like, I'm not sure I want it to be. I'm a maverick in this a little. And I don't know if I need other people telling me what I need to do. I know that sounds crazy, but when you're a Fortune 500 firm, that means you probably have a board of directors and some other stockholders and people that have a lot of investment and energy in what it is that you do. And oftentimes, what I do comes from the heart. And if I want to show up and support the people that I support, Black people, then I don't want anybody to tell me that I can't do that. So yeah. I'm not sure that's ever going to be the direction for me. I think it's something great for people to aspire to be, to get that type of recognition and to do that type of business. That's amazing. And I would support and help anyone that's looking to move in that direction, but it's probably just not the right direction for me.
There you go. Now, with that being said, tell us about Black Box.
Yeah, so we started Black Box here in Harlem. Black Box we branded as a career consciousness portal for Black men. So I'll tell you how it came about. So for years, I had done trainings and created content. I mean, you name it, it's across the board. I've facilitated workshops at the Grow with Google Learning Center. I've facilitated workshops on the Indeed.com platform, been featured in, I'm a Forbes career coach, Forbes magazine, featured in Inc., Black Enterprise, Modern Man. I facilitated workshops for Black Enterprise. Like, I've done so much stuff in the space, and I had so much content and information. Again, I host a show called the Digital Career Success Series for the National Urban League, and we do that every other week, where we do a professional development workshop series for their young professionals. So I have all of this content, but yet and still I would get calls from people or emails from people, and they would say, hey, Ken, I have an interview coming up this week. Do you got any advice? Can you mock interview me? Can you give me some questions that maybe I need to prepare for? And I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to do that. And I always felt extremely bad. But I said, how about if I create a platform where I can just say, hey, yeah, go here, and that information's sitting there for you. It's the top 100 behavioral-based interview questions, the STAR interview technique workshop. All of this stuff is sitting right here in one place for people to navigate around and get information. So that's what Black Box came from. I had a bunch of information, I put it in one place. But then when I decided to be a little more strategic about the way we delivered that information, we came up with Black Box. And because the information comes from me, it was definitely a slant towards Black men. So with that being said, we're excited about it. We just rolled it out in August, so it's available in the Apple and Google Play stores. Apple, it's BLKBOX.tech. In the Google Play, it's Black Box. But if you go to BLKBOX.tech, you'll find the downloads for both of those. But we're excited about it. Every time we talk to people, they get excited about it. It's necessary right now. And I'm just glad to be the person out in front waving the flag for Black men on this one, saying, hey, come over here, I can help you.
Now, when you say Black Box, I'm looking behind you and it's BLK Box. So is it spelled Black Box, BLACK? How do we find it?
BLKBOX.
Okay, BLKBOX. So is that the web address also?
Yeah, BLKBOX.tech, TECH. So BLKBOX.tech is the web address.
Got it.
Yes.
Now
we're excited, man. I had a conversation today that has me so excited about things. Like I'm going to release this. I'm going to release this on the Michael Taylor. I live in Manhattan, so I know you probably hear all of that noise outside.
That's right.
But anyway, I'm going to release this on the Michael Taylor Shattering Black Male Stereotypes podcast in January, probably in December actually, but really in January, we will start a Black Box tour. And right now we have about 6 cities that we're going to show up in and do either a fireside chat or workshops, but specifically designed to support Black men. And with that being said, that just happened. That happened. I had a call your call was 1. I think that happened at 12 today. So I came onto this call excited and happy because we're going to get it done. And, right now we're looking at 6 cities, but man, I can't wait to come back to tell you when it's 20 cities.
There you go. There you go. Well, if you come to Houston, you know where to find me.
You know what? When I come to Houston, I want you to be up there with me, man. I think we need to have this conversation live in Houston.
There you go, man. I'm ready. I am ready. That's the whole intention of this. Yeah. Now, so you kind of touched upon this earlier, but I want to dig a little deeper into this, because I personally have a dream of becoming a billionaire. Now, I define a billionaire as someone who positively impacts the lives of 1 billion people. And I believe if I can positively impact the lives of 1 billion people, my bottom line can show that on my spreadsheet. That's just how the universe works, I believe. So,
yes.
Now, a lot of people say, Michael, get your head out of the clouds. You're dreaming too big. My mom, on the other hand, when I was about 7 years old, my mom said this: Michael, if you want something badly enough, no one or no thing can keep you from accomplishing it except yourself. That lesson has stayed with me my entire life. And again, I don't pay attention to the naysayers and the doomsayers and so forth, because I trust my own heart. I trust my own intuition of what I can accomplish. And I say all that to say, how can we, as Black men especially, start expanding our vision of what we're capable of? So you're putting out these platforms, Black Box, and you're recruiting. But my goal is, how do we get Black men to start thinking bigger?
The key is always exposure. Well, I think the key is exposure for a lot of people. Sometimes people have to see it to believe it. Now, I'm a big fan, and I'm thinking that you probably are as well. When I say see it for myself, I don't mean that I have to see Michael Taylor do it or Barack Obama do it. If I can see it here, and mentally, if I can see it in my mind, then I don't necessarily need something that's a concrete example. But I do think a lot of people do. So with that being said, we, the people that just need to kind of see it within themselves and manifest it, we need to be the example for those that need to see it in practice. And we can't look down on the people that don't have the ability to see it when it doesn't exist, because that's just not the way they operate. That's not the way they're wired. They're still valuable and they'll still be really successful. But there are some of us out here who have been granted the vision to see things that don't exist. And we're sent here to strive to be great and then let other people see that greatness and aspire to be it. So I wholeheartedly believe that. So kudos to, you said your grandmother or your mother told you that?
My mother.
Your mother, yeah. Brilliant woman apparently. But yeah, it's, I have people that are close to me that they need to see it. They need to see somebody do it to think they can do it. I've never been a victim to that.
Yeah.
I think it's
because
crazy.
Again, we were basically the poster children for poverty back in the 60s. Okay. So my mom's a single mom with 6 kids, living in the projects, government housing, government food stamp, the whole 9 yards. And yet she still instilled in me that idea. And as I look at my life, and I've been up and I've been down, but I have always really and truly, in the deepest recesses of my heart, simply believed that was true. If I wanted it badly enough, who's going to stop me? Now, if you look at society today, it is my belief, this is another reason why I'm so optimistic. 2 reasons: technology and information.
Yes.
We have access, and I'm talking specifically to the brothers out there, we have access to technology and information today that we couldn't have even dreamed possible back in the 60s. I mean, I think about that, right? I'm thinking about, for example, you and I are doing this podcast. I can broadcast this podcast around the globe, and it costs me $14.95 a month.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing. So how can we, as Black men, not be optimistic when we have all these resources now available? We have people like yourself that are available. And once again, that's why I believe collaborations like this, conversations like this are so important, because I wrote a book, you can see on the back on my shoulder here, Shattering Black Male Stereotypes. And in the book, I talk about the 10 most destructive media-generated illusions about Black men. And the whole intention of the book is to change mindsets. Because as Black men, I think that's where it all starts. You said that, you don't buy into what other people say because you believe in your soul something. You have a vision and you're great at that. Unfortunately, most people adhere to what people say is, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. But
the reality is, if we'll believe it first, then we can see it. So I'm a huge fan of a guy named Wayne Dyer. I don't know if you're familiar with Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
Wayne Dyer, man, I've met him a couple of times. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. But Wayne Dyer said, you'll see it when you believe it. And so we have to begin believing in possibilities. We have to begin seeing in our minds and creating the vision of what we want to manifest in our lives. And one way to do that, as you mentioned, is exposure to people who have done it. Because like yourself, I remember when I first saw Kenneth Johnson on, I think it was Forbes magazine, as the head or the CEO of American Express. And I remember being so inspired. I was like, sheesh, if he can be CEO of American Express, what can I do?
Yeah.
Now, most brothers will say or point to the lack of Black CEOs. I, on the other hand, says, well, if there's so few, that means there's room for more.
There's room. Hey, look, that was my thought when we started recruiting. I said, well, look, if we just focus on recruiting CEOs, clearly there's some room for some brothers up there. Like we can do it like that. Yeah, I get it.
So I'm pointing to this for the people who are watching this, because I want you to think big. I want you to understand that in no way do I deny the obstacles and the challenges that are out there. We all know what they are. Racism, discrimination, all of those, they're there. But if I, as a young Black man with only an 11th grade education, who went through a divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, depression, I was homeless for 2 years living out of a car, right? And now to be CEO of my own publishing company, to host TV shows, radio shows, I've written 10 books. Tell me what's not possible. Anything is possible. Anything is possible if we set our minds to it. So we have to make a commitment to ourselves, to expose ourselves so that we can change the beliefs that we have of what's possible. So with that being said, though, I'm curious, in your firm, when you're placing these people, how do you vet people that you're going to be sending to these companies? How do you choose, who's in your network that you're going to be sharing with these companies? How does that work?
Yeah, I always tell people there's no secret sauce to the work we do. We just outwork everybody. But I will say this, talent is ever present. It's always coming into the marketplace. Every day there's new talent in a particular industry and or space. So we don't rely a lot. We rely on the structure of the network, but we don't rely on the network as much. And let me explain that a little. We try to find the best and the brightest talent for our business partners, the companies that we work with, the best and brightest diverse talent. And sometimes that involves asking Michael Taylor, hey, who do you know in Houston that I need to speak to? Now, that may not be somebody in our network. That may be a third tier connection. But we know Michael Taylor, and we know he's in Texas, and we know he's influential. I will call you out of the blue and say, hey, listen, I know this is what you do, but I'm thinking you might know somebody that does this. And then hopefully you point me in the direction of somebody that I need to speak to, and we just keep kind of working that through. Now, the flip side of that is that the minute I call and or email you, you're going to first say, who in the world is Kenneth Johnson of East Coast Executives? And then, because you just spoke about technology, you'll probably pull out your MacBook, your iPad, your phone, whatever, and Google me. I need to show up right when you do that. And I do, we do as East Coast Executives. So within that framework, you're gonna say, oh, wow, you know what? TEDx speaker, Forbes coach, wow, Grow with Google instructor, host a show for the Urban League. Brother might be all right. Wow, hell, 20 years in business. No, let me call him back. And then I need to have a conversation with you and not sound like I'm crazy. I need to respect your time and respect your influence. And hopefully in turn, you'll provide me with access to your network. And then we'll be able to kind of work accordingly through the channels to identify some individuals that might be right for the job. Now, it seems like a long process, but when you've been doing it for a while and you know exactly who to go to, it helps and it streamlines it. And I think that's one of the things. We didn't run here as a diversity recruitment firm after Mr. Floyd was murdered. You know, we didn't run here after Breonna Taylor was killed. We've been here for 20 years. Granted, a whole bunch of people lost their lives prior to that, but we came here on the platform and on the framework of addressing an issue. And that issue was the issue of workplace diversity or the lack thereof. And as long as we stayed firm and stood on that, we couldn't be stopped. It was, we were working for principle. We weren't even working for money. The money was good, but we were working to solve a problem. And I think when you're working from that standpoint, great things can happen.
Yeah. So imagine there's a guy watching this and this guy's got some great credentials. You know, he's looking for an opportunity and he's trying to figure out, you know, how to get his resume in front of the right people. And he's, you know, sort of like a recruiting firm or whatever. What would you say to that guy who's watching this right now?
Yeah, you know, I would definitely tell them to hit us up, right? Go visit the website, eastcoastexecutives.com. You know, it'll direct you on what to do in that regards. However, because we are a retained search firm, we don't help people find jobs. We help companies find people. So we really only work on the searches that the companies have paid us to search for. So we might be the best director of marketing in the world, but I don't have a director of marketing search right now. However, we're really good at what we do. So I think I'll have one soon. Hopefully it follows along the timelines that are right for you. Now, there have been people that I've came across whose skill set was so unique that I knew I had to introduce them to one of our client partners. Like I do have companies that say, hey, Ken, listen, if you find somebody with this skill set, we'll find a place for them. So I'm always on the lookout for talent, but I don't, you know, that's not the way we work. But I will keep the resume, put it in the database. And then when we find that opportunity, we'll do the search of our database first. Hopefully we'll have somebody that matches the skill set. But even if they're not interested, we think they provide a great source for referrals as well.
So what are your thoughts about LinkedIn?
I love LinkedIn, man. I'm the LinkedIn king. I'm all over LinkedIn. I wake up in the morning and look at LinkedIn. I think it's a great portal, but I think it's a great portal and resource for those that use it as such, right? I think, you know, it's a great place to get information, maybe oversaturated in the recruitment space. But I do think that from a personal branding and professional branding standpoint, and to get information out there, LinkedIn is amazing. I'm a big advocate. I'm a power user over there. And the people at LinkedIn are good. I've done some workshops with them. My man Romero Nelson at LinkedIn. I think he might have just moved to Texas too, but he's dynamic, man. That brother's, he's a LinkedIn employee. But yeah, I'm a big supporter and fan of that platform and the way it's remained and evolved over the years. Some of that LinkedIn learning stuff is amazing, amazing.
Now, how important, and I'm a huge tech guy, I just love technology. So for those who are watching, how important is it, or do you use in recruiting? Do you use technology? For example, are people are you interviewing people like on Zoom or something? If you're thinking about listing them, or you're going to send them to a company, do you incorporate that into your business?
Man, we love tech. We love tech. That's what Black Box is all about. We love it. But here's the thing. So we do Zoom interviews because we have a national footprint, right? We're here in Harlem, New York. Everybody's not in Harlem. We recruit nationally. We have companies that we support their searches. Well, one company in particular, we support their searches in Chicago, San Francisco, Miami, Los Angeles, and here in New York, right? We've placed somebody in Nairobi, Kenya. So these people can't come to Harlem to interview, but we leverage Zoom. The biggest piece, or Microsoft Teams, whatever it would be, right? The biggest piece from a technology standpoint for us has been the advent of software systems that allow us to filter for diverse talent. This didn't exist 5 years ago, really. And now you have a couple good systems, a couple bad systems, but you have a couple really good systems out here where I can put in a position description, and then I can click African American, Latinx, women. I can recruit. I can click on different demographics that will allow the system to churn and pull up candidates that appear to be of that background. And man, that streamlines the process for us like you wouldn't believe, especially if, like, I'm not that connected in Houston. So, like, if companies, I don't know, they might want us to fill a job 30, 45-day window, give or take. Like, that's kind of long. But if I was just trying to touch base with people in Houston, it might take me a while to get into those networks. This way, I can at least get straight to a candidate pool and start working from that, and maybe create what we call a drip campaign and things of that nature to get on their radar.
Fantastic. Wow. Man, time flies when you're having fun. So,
Indeed.
So give us your web addresses for East Coast Executive and Black Box real quick, and then we're going to move.
Yeah, please visit www.eastcoastexecutives.com and also BLKBOX.tech, TECH. So once again, Black Box, BLKBOX.tech. If you visit those sites, if you visit the BLKBOX.tech site, you'll see the links to download for Android and Apple users. If you visit the East Coast Executive site, you'll learn a little more about us, and you'll also see a career opportunities page where we list the jobs that we're currently searching for. Listen, we're all about communication, so please connect with us on our social media feeds. You can find us at East Coast Executives or at KL Johnson Info if you're looking to connect with me directly on most social media.
All right. So with that being said, now I want to get your closing thoughts to the audience, whatever you feel moved to share based on our conversation, or any other thoughts you might have. What are your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate you so much. Listen, I guess in closing, we talked a lot about being an entrepreneur, or just kind of, having your own business and things of that nature. I understand that that's not for everyone, so I don't encourage everybody to go in that direction. People have often, in today's day and age, a lot of times people look down on people for having a job, and I think that's insane. I think there's a lot of value in working a career and working a job, and that's one of the reasons why East Coast Executives still exists. Yeah, I've taken the entrepreneurship route. I'll tell anybody it's not easy, but there's support out here, and this is a great time as a business owner to find support, because just for this probably very small window of time, a lot of mainstream companies are giving a lot of attention to Black entrepreneurs, especially Black women entrepreneurs. So if you get a chance to take advantage of some of that programming, still keep your job, but this might be the time to make your side hustle a real hustle. So I encourage everyone that's interested in entrepreneurship to put your feet in the water. But if that's not for you, listen, this is a great time to advance your career, maybe pivot or do whatever it is that you need to do, but please take advantage of the time we're in right now. To Michael's point, technology and information is in full abundance. And I think if we leverage that, we can make strides over the next 5-10 years that haven't been seen in the history of Black America.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, though, real quickly, I'm curious, do you have some general numbers about the people that you place? What percentage would be Black men? I'm curious, do you have those numbers?
Man, I don't have the numbers, but I'm embarrassed by them.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons we created Black Box, right? I was telling Alfred on the Beyond the Hype podcast, I looked up our last 15 placements. They were all Black women. So, I looked up our placement history. I went back 15 placements before I turned to God. That's concerning to me. Not because I'm not a humongous supporter of Black women. You guys are clearly the reason we're in business right now, on both sides of it. Candidates and individuals that have business that have came to us and said, Ken, we want you to support. I make the decision at my company. I want your firm to support it. So we've been the biggest benefactors of the support of Black women, and I'm grateful. But for Black men, one of the reasons I get Black Box is because I'm getting concerned that we're not showing up like we need to be. I just spoke with a young lady today. Her name's Vedette Coleman from the African American Association of from the Association of African American Museums, right? And she was telling me that, it's even a concern in her world that they don't have a lot of Black men in leadership roles. And this is why we're here. This is why Black Box is here. It's not a shift. We've always been focused in on the careers of Black men, but we just know we need to be a little more intentional. So if you're a Black man and you're out here, download the app, BLKBOX.tech. We're coming. We're coming.
Absolutely. And that's the reason I created this platform, because number one, we as Black men especially have to collaborate more, inspire more, empower more. That's what we need. And so I feel blessed to have found you because you're the reason that I do this show, because I know there are so many brothers out there who are doing remarkable things that we never get to see. And so exposure is everything. Exposure is everything. So my primary area of expertise is the changing roles of manhood and masculinity in society. And that transcends ethnicity. It's really about what it means to be a man. And as Black men, we have to join that space to start talking about masculinity, talk about what's keeping us from reaching our fullest potential. And when we can start answering that question, then we can start making some major changes in our lives. So, man, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining on the podcast. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm just excited. Again, this is why I get so optimistic because when I interview people like yourself, I go, we're doing it. We're doing it. So again, thank you, man, for showing up. I appreciate you joining my podcast. I wish you continued success in all of your endeavors. If I can ever support you in any way, man, don't be afraid to reach out.
Man, you're supporting me by doing what you're doing, man. The Shattering Black Male Stereotypes in the book and everything. This is, I'm so glad that we were able to connect, because I definitely believe that there's a great synergy, and we can partner together to support and help Black men across any time in their careers, entry level to C-suite. I think we can put together some things to support not only one another, but Black men moving forward. So thank you for having me. Absolutely.
So this has been another episode of Shatter the Stereotypes. So that's your job. Shatter the stereotypes. Create that extraordinary life, because it's possible for you. We'll see you next episode. Take care.